much love to you and yours. This is Siren Buddha Medicine. I want to talk to you about archons. So in the beginning, there was the fallen. And the fallen fell in love or was magnetized and attracted to the human women. So they mated with the women, and their offspring became the Nephilim, what we call giants. And the Most High was not pleased with the giants because they were huge and their desire, their hunger was ferocious. And so they ate a lot of the things that humans needed. They consumed a lot of the things on the earth, the animals and things that the earth had that were plentiful, including people. They ate people, okay? So the Most High viewed them as an abomination because of how much they consumed, because of their lack of connection with grace, with mercy, with love, with the healing frequency, because they were consumers. It doesn't say they were givers at all, right? In order to live here, there needs to be an exchange of energy. There needs to be a reason of sustainability. Anyway, those are partly principles, okay? So when the Most High was angry because they weren't fitting into the theme of sustainability, he wiped them out and there was a flood. So he killed off a great portion of the Nephilim. There was actually 2 floods, okay? And in this particular flood, he killed off most of the bloodline. Noah took his family and they restarted over again. But there were other parts of the earth that, including Noah, was said to still have the bloodline on the ship with him that connected with the Nephilim, which is the bloodline of those people who mated with the fallen, okay? And what God did as a punishment was when the Nephilim died, when the giants died, they would not inhabit the earth, but rather be above the earth, okay? He put them in dominion above the earth, which is like our ether, our stars, things that above us. And if you look at the constellations, that is a partial description of the Nephilim. Some describe the Nephilim as elementals. Others describe them as demons. But if you look at the astrology chart, they're actually domains. They're domains of thought. They were put in dominion, and they're actually domains of thought. Their archons are Nephilim, or life forms, thought forms without a body, that utilize bodies. They're the bodies that hover over the earth. As above, so below. As within, so without. So they are thought forms that we navigate and gravitate towards. Different cultures look at the Nephilim in different ways. If you look at astrology, depending on what system that you use, Agravera, tropical, or even Pacific regular astrology, there are sections, and say like for Aquarius, there's 3 different segments, just like there's 3 different aspects to each sign. Those are the attribute and aspects that you're looking at energetically when it comes to the influences of what we call the archons. The archons are the thought forms. So there's some wordplay. There's different entities that influence humanity. And in different cultures, they're called different things. Some call them jinn. Some call them demons. And like I said, they're domains. They're actually dominions of thought. And just like your hand, there's a front and a back, just like a coin. You could get with this or you could get with that. And depending on your intention, depending on what you gravitated towards and what you're magnetized to, will determine what aspect of that energy you're working with, which is the reason why it's so doggone important that you do your shadow work. Okay? Your shadow work is part of the thing that helps you navigate through these different dominions of thought when you move through the archons. The reason why they're in charge is because they're aspects of you, of humanity, but they're larger than life and they no longer have a body, so they can influence those things with a body as how they express themselves and they live out their lives. So in the Hindu religion, they might describe it through the Sri Yantra as different aspects of humanity from the Bindu that rippled out and expressed themselves through different thought forms like desire and ego. And then through that system, as you get control of your darker self and you acknowledge it and you work with it, you get to expand, and there is spiritual growth. In the Tao system, they look at different aspects of dimensions of your body. Each part is a section and has a consciousness, just like the astrology itself is a body, right? When you look at it, it's somebody that's bent over backwards around the earth, okay, where the head actually touches the feet. And you get the sky goddess aspect of it, and within that are all the planets and aspects of being, okay? Now, in the Tao system, when you look at different organs within that system, like the heart consciousness, and what some systems call chakras are actually vortexes, energy vortexes. And these energy vortexes are attached to a consciousness on a deeper level. So when you start getting into archons, thought forms, and the different aspects of the sign, like I said, each sign has at least 3 different aspects of it. That's when you start to calculate in, whether consciously because you know or unconsciously, you're tallying in the different influences, the different thought forms, the different thoughts that form from these energy bodies that used to have a physical body, that are now spiritual bodies that are governing and are part of our celestial system. When you look at astrology from our point of view here in America, you see the different astrology signs have, like Cancer has a crab attached to it, right? So you're seeing a different energy or aspect of the crab. Leo has a lion attached to it, and Aquarius has the man, and Capricorn has the half man, half animal, okay? So when you're looking at the totems, almost, that the symbolisms that are attached to the signs, those are actually also attributes, right? But there's more than one. So what I'm showing you is how, although a lot of people don't talk about archons, thought forms, that originated from the giants when everything on the planet was much larger, right? Also, along with the archons, when you think of thought forms and thought forms being larger than life, the earth, nothing can grow taller than the environment that can sustain it. In our ancient world, our trees were as big as the mountains, that some of the mountains that we're looking at now are actually calcified trees. There was an ancient world where our trees were as big as, or bigger than the structures of mountains that we're seeing now. Therefore, it could sustain and inhabit a giant being like the Nephilim at the time. When the world was stripped away and wiped away and the trees chopped down, our world has went through so many different changes that this is nothing what we're looking at as far as nature, the netter, compared to what it used to be. Think about how pilgrims had to cut down trees and forests and things like that to travel from one side of the world to another, right? So we're talking about a time when there was actually our world could sustain different life forms that are no longer sustainable on the measure that we know them now. Like actual DNA and life forms on the planet changed along with the loss of the Nephilim, the absence of the giants, and the restructuring of our world after the demiurge. But the influences of those beings are still here. And the mysteries attached to them are also still here. Like there's also history that reads that people were actually able to control. There were certain people that were actually able to control the Nephilim. So the influence went different ways. If you can ask a Nephilim to build a cathedral or a pyramid or a giant gateway, right? The world was different, and the energy vortexes of the world were also different. The mysteries were rearranged differently, and the control structure was different, and it took a lot to break that down and to separate us from the spiritual realms. But yet we get clues as to our connections and how we're interwoven and the enmeshment between our spirits, our thoughts, and our bodies. And basically, the Nephilim, the world of Nephilim and giants and archons is part of that mysteries and something that should further be explored. And there's so many things to discover, many more than I have in this quick video where I want to answer the question of someone that is dear to me very quickly, as far as Nephilim and archons and thought forms. So, he who governs his thoughts governs himself, but he who gives that ability away is governed by something else. Much love to you and yours. This is Siren Buddha Medicine, Lifecoach 369A, the Feminine Principle. Ashe. My daughter asked me to do this video on archons, so I'm doing a video on archons. Check the resources, do further research on archons. Much love to you and yours. This is Siren Buddha Medicine, the female aspect, wisdom. I'm out.